Thank you, Chair. I want to first thank Senator Shoebridge for his work in this area over many years now, and including his time in the Senate. Also to Senator Scarr, I've seen the way he engages in good faith and methodically on a range of issues, including this, and I may very much disagree with his party's position on elements of amendments in this bill, but I do think he's a genuinely good faith actor when it comes to getting across legislation and ensuring that it is sound. Also wanted to commend the Attorney-General and the government for making the Administrative Reviews Tribunal more independent and transparent. This is clearly a crucial and long overdue step towards a fairer system. But fairness and accessibility, two of the Tribunal's stated goals, remain out of reach for many, particularly when it comes to migration matters. Fair and accessible should mean just that, and it should mean that for everyone. But under the Migration Act, the Tribunal has no discretion to extend appeal deadlines for migration applicants, regardless of their circumstances. If you're currently homeless and don't receive your decision in time, too bad. If you're in hospital with a serious illness and miss the deadline, too bad. If you're fleeing family violence and your decision is sent to your abuser's address, too bad. In these cases, the only option is to go to the federal court, where cases drag on for years, clogging our legal system and dragging out the uncertainty. Migration matters make up 87% of the Tribunal's caseload, yet the Tribunal is stripped of discretion in these cases. I find the disconnect in this place where we say to these bodies, we trust you, you're experts, the appointment process is sound, we're going to have people on there who can make great decisions, but then we take away discretion. And we've seen it done time and again. We saw it done with the NAC, where we don't leave it up to the experts. We say, you're experts, do your thing, except in these circumstances where the politics comes into play. And I think on this issue, it is very cruel politics that so many Australians want the major parties to do better on. This bill was an opportunity to fix this, and I think it's an opportunity that has been missed. Beyond procedural barriers, the government has failed to address another major injustice: the people who have been left behind by the FastTrack process. A process that, while in opposition, Labor pointed out many times, was neither fast nor fair, and has left so many people in our communities in limbo. It was a deeply flawed refugee determination system that was rightly abolished by this government, and yet we have 7,000 people stuck in limbo, denied a fair review of their asylum claims. Many of these people arrived in Australia as children. It wasn't their decision to come here. They came here with their parents or with a parent. They went to school here. They made friends here. They learned our history. They play sport in local teams in their community. And they have dreamed about their futures like any other Australian kid. But for them, that future remains uncertain. These young people, many of them now in their late teens, early 20s, don't even remember their current country of origin. For all intents and purposes, they're Australian. They believe they're Australian. They sound like they're Australian. They're committed to Australian values and wanting to contribute. But because of the political race to the bottom on asylum seeker issues, our government still refuses to give them a fair go. How long have we heard leaders say, if you have a go, you'll get a go? What about these young people? They've grown up in a country that treats them as temporary, in the only home they've ever known. They've been forced onto temporary bridging visas that keep them in a cycle of precarity, preventing them from planning their lives, accessing higher education, or pursuing long-term employment. Many aren't even allowed to work or study at all because of the conditions on their bridging visas. Imagine finishing high school alongside your classmates. You've got hopes and dreams for the future. You apply to university, you get in. Some young people I've spoken to have won scholarships to universities. They've been the top of their class. They've worked harder than their peers, driven by a desire to make something of the opportunities this country should be giving them. And they go to university. And they turn 18 and they get a letter from this government saying, sorry, you can no longer study at this institution. In many cases, you can't work. No study or work rights. This is cruel. This is so, so cruel. When you zoom out, it's cruel, and when you talk to someone in that situation, I do not understand why we do this as a country. We've got young people who've dreamt of working in healthcare or education, areas where we hear so much about the desperate need for more workers in those areas. We see a government trying to get more people to move to Australia, more migration in those areas. And yet we have people here in our communities who want to do that, and we're not allowing them to chase their dreams. They're being shut out of accessing university or even TAFE. This is a moral failure of our country, and it's a moral failure to recognise the contributions of thousands of people who have already given so much to this country, despite being given so little in return. And I would urge colleagues in this place to think about this moral failure. If we truly love this place, we should expect more of this country. We should be constantly challenging ourselves when it comes to these issues that happen for political means but have such a brutal impact on fellow human beings. I support this bill given the government's amendments that remove the provisions that would have caused even greater harm to migration applicants. But let's be clear. The tribunal is still not fair and accessible for the majority of its applicants. And the government must act to fix the impacts of the broken FastTrack system that has left 7,000 people in our communities in limbo. And we must do better. Fairness should not depend on who you are, who you know, or where you were born. Minister, can you advise whether it is the government's intention to continue to work to make the ART more fair and accessible for migration applications, considering they make up 87% of the tribunal's caseload?